The Taiwan Strait at 2:11 a.m. is 180 kilometers of open water with nowhere to hide. The destroyer is operating as the lead surface combatant in a three-ship surface action group, 62 nautical miles east of the median line, 94 nautical miles from the Fujian coast. To the north and south, two additional surface combatants are stationed at 18-kilometer intervals. The carrier strike group they are screening is 210 kilometers to the east, beyond the horizon, beyond the engagement geometry. For this fight, those 210 kilometers might as well be the Pacific itself. The SPY-6 radar is painting a dense picture. It always does in these waters. Planned surface combatants at 160 to 220 kilometers. Maritime militia vessels scattered through the median zone in patterns that look random and are not. H-6 bomber tracks fading in and out at the edge of radar range to the northwest. The air picture has been complex for 6 hours, and complex in these waters is the baseline condition. The watch team has learned to distinguish between a busy radar picture and a threat. And for 6 hours, the answer has been busy, not yet a threat. At 2:11 a.m., that answer changes. 40 contacts, simultaneously airborne, emerging from the median zone on bearings between 280 and 310 degrees. Not from the Fujian coast, from the median zone, from maritime militia vessels that had been in position for 4 hours. Contact profiles are immediate and unambiguous. Small, slow, the radar signature of commercial UAV platforms rising through 300 meters in a loose, coordinated formation. Speed, 180 kilometers per hour. Altitude, climbing to 800 meters and stabilizing. Bearing, direct approach. Time to SM-6 engagement range, 18 minutes. 40 contacts. The TAO has seen this profile before in the threat library. He knows what it is. He also knows what it might be designed to do. The question that would define the next 12 minutes was not whether he could neutralize 40 slow UAVs. He could. The question was what was behind them. Running count. 2:11 a.m., second 040 UAV contacts. Range, 74 kilometers. Speed, 180 kilometers per hour. Time to SM-6 range, 18 minutes. VLS SM-6 x 8, SM 2 x 24, ESSM 32 loaded. RAM 21, CIWS 4 and aft, 100%. All contacts bearing 280 to 310. The intelligence picture for the Taiwan Strait had been consistent for months on one point. The plan had studied U.S. layered defense doctrine with the same systematic attention that U.S. analysts had studied theirs. The outer ring consumed SM-6. The middle ring consumed SM-2 and ESSM. The inner ring consumed CIWS. The doctrine was publicly available in unclassified form, analyzed in think tank papers and Naval Institute proceedings, dissected in academic journals that anyone with internet access could read. The plan had read them. The scenario that defense analysts called the magazine exhaustion problem was straightforward in theory and catastrophic in practice. Send a first wave that forces expenditure of the expensive outer ring interceptors, follow immediately with a second wave of genuine ship killers that arrives when the magazine is depleted. The drones do not need to reach the hull. They need to empty the SM-6 cells. Whatever comes after them does the rest. The TAO knew this. 40 contacts at 180 kilometers per hour gave him 18 minutes before the first SM-6 engagement window. In those 18 minutes, he needed to answer one question. Were there YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles behind this wave? And if so, when were they coming? He had the planned surface group picture. 6 Type 05 2D destroyers at 165 to 190 kilometers, 2 Type 055 cruisers at 210 kilometers, all within YJ-18 launch range. Each Type 052D carried 64 VLS cells, a significant fraction of which were YJ-18 loadout. The YJ-18 was a subsonic cruise missile with a Mach 3 terminal sprint, 200 kilometers of subsonic approach, then a 20-second Mach 3 dash inside the terminal engagement envelope. Against SM-6, the terminal sprint was the problem. At Mach 3, the engagement window lasted under 8 seconds. The question was timing. If the plan fired YJ-18S simultaneously with the drone launch, the missiles would arrive while the outer ring was engaged with drones. If they fired on a delay, the missiles would arrive after the drones had exhausted the SM-6 inventory. Both designs were coherent. Both were documented in plan operational concepts. The difference in his response was everything. He could engage all 40 UAVs with SM-6 now, use 8 interceptors, exhaust his long-range inventory, and gamble that there were no YJ-18S behind them. Cost, $16.8 million, all SM-6 expended. Or he could hold the SM-6, let the UAVs close to ESSM range, accept the tighter engagement geometry and lower hit probability against slow targets, and preserve 8 SM-6 for what he increasingly believed was coming. Cost, 12 more minutes of UAVs closing unmolested towards CIWS range, and a middle ring engagement against 40 targets with a system not optimized for slow, small contacts. The TAO had 40 seconds to make the call. He used 38 of them. Hold SM-6. SM-2 engages at 30 kilometers. ESSM at 20. RAM at 8. CIWS takes everything that gets through. I want a continuous E2 data link update on the planned surface group. If anything changes in their radar emission profile, I need it immediately. He was keeping his SM-6 cells cold. He was gambling. He was also the most experienced tactical action officer in the surface warfare community on this coast, and he had spent 4 years studying plan doctrine. He believed there were YJ-18S coming. He had no proof. He had 12 minutes to be right or catastrophically wrong. Running count, 2:11 a.m., second 4840 UAV contacts. Range, 71 kilometers, closing. SM-6, 8 held. SM-2, standing by at 30 kilometers trigger. ESSM, standing by. Cost, $0. Planned service group, 6 times Type 05, 2D at 165 to 190 kilometers. Radar emissions, baseline. The UAVs were not passive. As they closed through 60 kilometers, the formation executed a wave split. 20 contacts, the lead group on bearing 295, maintained course and speed. The remaining 20, the trail group on bearing 285, turned 7 degrees south and accelerated to 210 kilometers per hour. The maneuver separated the two groups by bearing and arrival time. The lead group would enter SM-2 range 4 minutes before the trail group. The defensive system would need to sequence engagements across 2 separate approach axes with overlapping timelines. The weapons officer watched the separation on the tactical display. The lead group on 295 was high, 800 meters. The trail group on 285 had descended to 150 meters, now 120 meters, now sea skimming at 80 meters above the strait. The sea clutter, return at this altitude, degraded SPY-6 track quality on the trail group from green to amber in real time. Wave split plus altitude layering. 2 different engagement problems arriving simultaneously. Whoever had programmed these platforms had read the same doctrine the TAO had. Running count, 2:19 a.m., second 480. UAV lead group, 18 at 28 kilometers. UAV trail group, 20 at 26 kilometers, sea skimming 80 meters. SM-6, 8 held. SM-2, cells 1 to 12 expended, 12 remaining. ESSM, 24 remaining. RAM, 21. CIWS, 100%. Cost, $10.8 million. YJ-18 status, unknown. At 2:17 a.m., from 190 kilometers to the northwest, 6 Type 052D destroyers changed their radar emission profile simultaneously. The E-2 Hawkeye relayed it in seconds. Fire control radar illumination on 6 separate planned warships, consistent with pre-launch targeting. Missile launch detection confirmed at 2:18 a.m. 12 contacts, subsonic, bearing 285 to 295, altitude 100 meters, speed Mach 0.85. YJ-18 cruise missiles in subsonic cruise phase, range at detection 178 kilometers. Time to terminal sprint initiation, estimated 14 minutes. Time to ship at current closure, 21 minutes. The TAO had been right. There were YJ-18S behind the drones. He now had a simultaneous engagement problem of a different category. 40 UAVs on 2 axes, 14 minutes from terminal approach, 12 YJ-18S, 21 minutes out, Mach 3 terminal sprint, each carrying a 165-kilogram warhead capable of mission-killing a destroyer in a single hit. 2 defensive layers needed to work simultaneously with 1 weapons inventory, 1 fire control suite, and a depleting magazine. Plan strike confirmed. 12 YJ-18 inbound. All SM-6 reserved for YJ-18 terminal phase. SM-2, primary on UAV lead group now. ESSM, UAV trail group. RAM, inner ring on whatever gets through. CIWS, final authority on everything. The SM-6 cells stayed cold. 8 interceptors, $16.8 million, sitting in their cells while 40 slow drones closed through 55 kilometers. The call was made. The logic was the YJ-18 terminal sprint at Mach 3 required SM-6 to have any intercept probability. Without SM-6, a YJ-18 inside terminal sprint had a roughly 30% ESSM intercept probability and a 20% CIWS probability. The math on missing a YJ-18 was a 165-kilogram warhead at Mach 3 hitting a hull. The math was not acceptable. SM-6 stays cold until the YJ-18S enter terminal. SM-2 cells 1 through 6 launched against the lead UAV group at 31 kilometers. 6 interceptors, 6 tracks, 2.4-second sequence. 4 intercepts, 2 misses, track quality degraded as contacts maneuvered into a tighter formation. 2 tracks merging temporarily and causing the fire control system to requeue mid-engagement. 18 contacts remaining in the lead group at 28 kilometers. SM-2 cells 7 through 12. 6 more. 5 intercepts, 1 miss. 13 remaining in the lead group. ESSM against the trail group, now at 24 kilometers, and sea skimming at 60 meters. ESSM cells 1 through 8 launched against the 8 cleanest track files. 6 intercepts, 2 misses, both contacts executing lateral evasion maneuvers in the terminal 3 kilometers of ESSM engagement. Trail group, 12 remaining at 20 kilometers. Running count, 2:21 a.m., second 616. UAV lead group, 13 contacts at 22 kilometers. UAV trail group, 12 contacts at 20 kilometers. YJ-18 contacts, 12 at 152 kilometers. Mach 0.85. SM-6, 8 held. SM-2, 12 remaining. ESSM, 24 remaining. RAM, 21. CIWS, 100%. Cost, $10.8 million. Time to YJ-18, terminal sprint, 8 minutes. The weapons officer was managing 2 simultaneous engagement queues with 2 different threat types at 2 different ranges on 2 different bearing arcs. The fire control system was handling the sequencing. It was what the system was built for. But the decisions about which threats got which interceptors required human authority at every step. He was authorizing engagement calls every 4 to 7 seconds. His thumb did not leave the panel. SM-6 cells, 13 through 18, against the UAV lead group at 18 kilometers. 6 launches, 4 intercepts, 9 remaining at 16 kilometers. The lead group had taken 14 SM-2 rounds and was down to 9 contacts. The trail group had taken 8 ESSM and was down to 12. 21 total UAV contacts remaining across 2 axes. And the SM-6 was still cold. At 2:23 a.m., the E-2 called the terminal sprint. IJ-18, contacts accelerating. All 12 contacts. Speed increasing through Mach 1, through Mach 1.5, through Mach 2. Track files upgrading to sprint phase parameters. 151 kilometers from the ship. Mach 3. The YJ-18 sprint geometry compressed the engagement timeline from 14 minutes to under 3 minutes. At Mach 3, 12 missiles covered the remaining distance in 72 seconds. The TAO released the SM-6, all 8. YJ-18 tracks. Fire by priority. Fire now. 8 cells. 8 missiles. 1.1 second sequence between launches. The VLS fired so fast the deck vibration was continuous rather than sequential, a sustained shudder through the entire ship, 8 individual jolts merging into a single, prolonged tremor that rattled equipment in every compartment. The SM-6 boosters lit at 3.5 Gs, clearing the deck at supersonic speed, curving northwest toward 12 Mach 3 contacts at 100 TP 48 kilometers. The SM-6 was designed for this. Terminal phase intercept against a supersonic target. At Mach 3 closure rate, the engagement geometry lasted seconds, and the SM-6's active seeker was the only system in the inventory with the tracking speed to match a YJ-18 in sprint. 8 interceptors against 12 missiles. 8 would get clean intercept opportunities, 4 would not. 4 YJ-18S would enter the middle ring. The SM-6 cells were now empty. Whatever came after the middle ring, the outer ring was gone. Running count, 2:24 a.m., second 769. SM-6, 8 fired, 0 remaining. YJ-18 contacts, 12 at 138 kilometers. Mach 3. UAV lead group, 9 at 12 kilometers. UAV trail group, 12 at 10 kilometers. SM-2, 6 remaining. ESSM, 24 remaining. RAM, 21. CIWS, 100%. Cost, $27.6 million. Time to YJ-18 intercept results, 90 seconds. The next 90 seconds were the split screen problem. In the foreground, 21 UAVs closing from 8 to 12 kilometers on 2 axes, the ESSM and remaining SM-2 working through them in sequence. In the background, 8 SM-6 interceptors racing toward 12 Mach 3 missiles at combined closure speeds that made every second count. ESSM cells 9 through 16 against the UAV trail group at 9 kilometers. 7 intercepts, 1 miss, 5 remaining in the trail group. SM-2 cells 19 through 22 against the UAV lead group at 8 kilometers, all 4 remaining SM-2. 3 intercepts, 1 miss, 6 remaining in the lead group. SM-2 inventory, 2 rounds remaining. The middle ring was nearly empty. At 2:25 a.m., the first SM-6 intercept results arrived. 7 of 8 SM-6 had achieved intercept, proximity fuse detonations against Mach. 3 targets produced inconsistent intercept probability, but 7 intercepts were assessed as likely neutralizations based on track loss and debris signatures. One SM-6 had missed. Target executed a terminal evasion maneuver inside 10 kilometers that the seeker had not compensated for sufficiently. 11 YJ-18 contacts neutralized, 1 remaining, Mach 3, bearing 292, range 89 kilometers, time to ESSM range 58 seconds. 11 SM-6 had been needed, 8 had been available. 1 got through. That was the equation the TAO had accepted when he made his call. The question now was whether the remaining defensive layers could solve a Mach 3 contact on a 58-second timeline. Running count, 2:25 a.m., second 847, YJ-18 leaker, 1 contact, 89 kilometers, Mach 3, 58 seconds to ESSM range, UAV lead group 6 at 6 kilometers, UAV trail group 5 at 6 kilometers, SM-6 0, SM-2 2 remaining, ESSM 16 remaining, RAM 21, CIWS 100%. Cost $27.6 million. The 2 remaining SM-2 could not be used on UAVs now. The TAO designated both against the YJ-18 leaker at maximum range, SM-2 on the leaker. Fire both. 2 SM-2 against 1. Mach 3 contact at 85 kilometers. Launch. Both tracking. The YJ-18 was maneuvering in terminal phase, the same evasion geometry that had defeated the SM-6 seeker. Both SM-2 missed. Track file update. YJ-18 at 67 kilometers, speed steady at Mach 3, time to ESSM range 31 seconds, SM-2 inventory 0. ESSM was next, but ESSM had an 85% hit probability against subsonic targets. Against a Mach 3 contact, a target moving at roughly 1,000 meters per second, intercept probability dropped to approximately 35% per round. The fire control system allocated 4 ESSM against the single YJ-18 contact at 42 kilometers. 4 rounds, 35% each, sequential detonations across a 3-kilometer engagement window. The math: 83% probability of at least 1 intercept if all 4 engaged cleanly. ESSM cells 17, 18, 19, 20. 4 missiles, 4 seconds. Smoke trails crossing northwest in tight parallel lines. First ESSM detonated 7 meters from the YJ-18. Proximity fuse triggered, but fragmentation pattern insufficient at Mach 3 closure speed. YJ-18 continued. Second ESSM, direct hit on the guidance section. Track file lost. Debris signature at 28 kilometers. 11 plus 1. 12 YJ-18 contacts neutralized. 0 leakers from the YJ-18 package. The TAO allowed himself 2 seconds to register the result. Then he returned to the UAV engagement. 11 contacts remaining across 2 groups at 4 to 6 kilometers. RAM had been standing by. RAM. All 11 tracks. Fire by priority. RAM cells 1 through 11. 11 missiles in 6.8 seconds. 9 intercepts. 2 misses. Both contacts in the trail group executing lateral evasion inside 4 kilometers. 2 UAVs inside CIWS range. Running count, 2:26 a.m., second 932. UAV 2 contacts, inner ring, 2.8 kilometers and 3.1 kilometers. YJ-18, 0 remaining. SM-6, 0. SM-2, 0. ESSM, 12 remaining. RAM, 10 remaining. CIWS 4, 100%. CIWS aft, 100%. Cost $38.2 million. Time elapsed, 15 minutes, 32 seconds. Running count, 2:26 a.m., second 918. YJ-18, 0 remaining. UAV 2 contacts at 2.6 kilometers and 3.1 kilometers. SM-6, 0. SM-2, 0. ESSM, 12 remaining. RAM, 10. CIWS fore, 100%. CIWS aft, 100%. Cost, $38.2 million. Time elapsed, 15 minutes, 28 seconds. CIWS forward acquired the first contact at 2,600 meters. The contact was sea skimming, trail group origin, altitude 50 meters, moving at 210 kilometers per hour on bearing 285. Burst, 0.6 seconds, 45 rounds. The platform fragmented at 2,200 meters. Payload initiated in the fragmentation cloud, a flat crack audible from the bridge, a brief pressure signature, debris into the water on the port quarter. Second contact at 3,100 meters, bearing 288. The CIWS dome rotated 3 degrees left. The contact was maneuvering, small lateral oscillations that were either turbulence or a terminal guidance adjustment. Burst 0.9 seconds, 67 rounds. Fragmented at 2,800 meters. Payload did not initiate. Debris scattered to port. Engagement complete. All contacts neutralized. 0 hull impacts. At 2:28 a.m., the SPY-6 was tracking no inbound contacts within 50 kilometers. The E-2 confirmed planned surface group had not launched additional salvos. The Type 052D fire control radars had gone to standby. The H-6 tracks to the northwest were turning away. The strait was quiet. In CIC, nobody said anything for approximately 8 seconds. That was what the absence of incoming threats sounded like after 16 minutes of continuous engagement at maximum intensity. Not silence. The ship was full of sound, systems and crew and the sea itself. But the specific category of attention that the brain allocates to incoming threats had found nothing to attach to, and the resulting gap in consciousness felt, for those 8 seconds, like the loudest thing in the room. The damage assessment was clean. No impacts, no fragment damage, no personnel injuries. The ship was structurally and operationally intact. The magazine assessment was not clean. SM-6, 0 of 8 remaining. SM-2, 0 of 24 remaining. ESSM, 12 of 32 remaining. RAM, 10 of 21 remaining. CIWS forward, 94%. The 2 inner ring engagements had consumed 92 rounds combined. CIWS aft, 100%. The outer ring was gone. Both of them, the SM-6 long-range layer and the SM-2 medium-long layer, were completely exhausted. If a second YJ-18 salvo came in the next 4 days before resupply, the ship had 12 ESSM, 10 RAM, and CIWS to defend against a Mach 3 missile. The ESSM hit probability against a Mach 3 terminal sprint was 35%. The math on a 12 ESSM, 10 RAM defense against the second salvo of 12 YJ-18S was not a defense. It was a description of what would happen. The weapons officer sat in his space and looked at the SM-6 inventory display. 0. The SM-2 display? 0. He had done his job correctly in every decision, and the result was a ship with no outer ring interceptors in a sector where the adversary had just demonstrated the ability and willingness to fire 12 YJ-18S at a U.S. surface combatant. He had kept the SM-6 cold for 14 minutes while 40 drones closed to 8 kilometers. That call had saved enough SM-6 capacity to neutralize 11 of 12 YJ-18S. The ESSM had caught the 12th. The ship was intact. Every decision in sequence had been correct. The SM-6 cells were still empty. Both things were true simultaneously, and neither resolved the other. The final accounting assembled in the wardroom after first light captured the engagement geometry with the precision that numbers allow and human experience does not. 40 UAVs deployed by maritime militia vessels from the median zone. Total UAV cost, approximately $200,000 for the platforms. $80,000 in modification and payload. 12 YJ-18 cruise missiles from 6 Type 05 2D destroyers. The most precise cost estimate was $500,000 to $2 million per YJ-18, depending on variant, a range that reflected the difficulty of verifying plan unit costs from open sources. Conservative estimate, $6 million for the YJ-18 salvo. Total adversary investment, approximately $6.3 million. U.S. munitions expended, 8 SM-6 at $2.1 million to $16.8 million. 24 SM-2 at $1.2 million to $28.8 million. 20 ESSM at $450,000 to $9 million. 11 RAM at $900,000 to $9.9 million. CIWS ammunition, negligible at $3,000. Total, $64.5 million. Exchange ratio, $64.5 million against $6.3 million, approximately 10 to 1 in the adversary's favor. But the exchange ratio understated the strategic result. The adversary had not simply spent $6.3 million and forced the expenditure of $64.5 million. They had spent $200,000 in UAV platforms to exhaust the decision-making capacity of the TAO, Force and Irrevocable Magazine Allocations decision under time pressure, and compress the SM-6 inventory window. The UAVs had not been intended to reach the hull. They had been intended to make the SM-6 decision harder. They had succeeded. The TAO had made the right call. Hold SM-6, use SM-2 and ESSM on the drones, reserve the outer ring for the missile salvo. He had been right. The ship survived. The adversary had also achieved the result they needed. 12 YJ-18S had been fired at a $2.2 billion warship. 11 had been intercepted. 1 had penetrated to ESSM range. If the ESSM had missed that 12th missile, if the second ESSM of 4 had not scored a direct hit on the guidance section, a 165-kilogram warhead at Mach 3 would have hit the hull of a destroyer carrying a full crew. 1 missed intercept. That was the margin. 1 ESSM round, 1 proximity fuse, 1 fragmentation pattern. The outer ring was empty. Resupply was 4 days away. The planned surface group had turned northwest. They had not turned home. Northwest in this geometry meant returning to port range for reload. The tactical intelligence assessment, circulated within 3 hours of the engagement, estimated reload time for the Type 052 DVLS at 18 to 48 hours, depending on logistics support availability in Fujian ports. The ship had used everything to defeat 1 salvo. The adversary could reload and fire a second salvo in 18 to 48 hours. The ship's outer ring would not be restored in 18 to 48 hours. The two facts occupied the same space and produced a conclusion that nobody in the wardroom needed to state aloud. Emergency resupply transmitted at 6:32 a.m. Priority SM-6, SM-2, ESSM, RAM, ETA from closest pre-position logistics vessel. 4 days. Engagement. Taiwan Strait, 2:11 a.m. to 2:28 a.m. local. First wave, 40 UAV platforms, maritime militia origin, median zone. Total adversary cost, $280,000. Second wave, 12 YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles, Type 052D origin, Mach 3 terminal sprint. Adversary cost estimate, $6 million. Total adversary investment, $6.3 million. Contacts engaged, 40 UAV, 40 neutralized. 12 YJ-18-12 neutralized. Total, 52 contacts, 52 neutralized. 0 hull impacts. Interceptors expended, SM-6 times 8, 0 remaining. SM-2 times 24, 0 remaining. ESSM times 20, 12 remaining. RAM times 11, 10 remaining. CIWS, 92 rounds expended, both mounts operational. Total U.S. munitions expenditure, $64.5 million. Exchange ratio, 10-to-1 in the adversary's favor. Magazine status, outer ring, 0. Both SM-6 and SM-2 inventories fully expended. Middle ring, ESSM at 38% capacity. Inner ring, RAM at 48%. CIWS, fully operational. Ship, defensively capable, at inner and middle range only. Adversary type 052. D-reload estimate, 18 to 48 hours. U.S. resupply ETA, 4 days. Emergency resupply requested, 6:32 a.m. ETA, 4 days. The ship had survived the engagement. The outer ring had not survived the mathematics of surviving it. $64 million spent to hold a line that the adversary could test again in 48 hours, at a cost they had already demonstrated they were willing to pay. The TAO made every correct decision under conditions that were designed to make every decision wrong. The ship was intact. The magazine was empty where it mattered most. In the gap between those two sentences lived the strategic problem that $64.5 million in interceptors had not resolved, and could not because the problem was not ammunition. The problem was arithmetic. The plan knew the reload time of the U.S. logistics chain better than any sensor could measure it. The 4-day resupply window was not an intelligence gap. It was a planning assumption.